Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of the Bible Together reading project at First Christian Church, Jefferson City, Missouri. This week, we are continuing to read stories from Genesis alongside the final intense days of Jesus' life in the Gospel of Mark. And what I keep noticing in the stories I've read so far is how often they are showing us times when the existing power structures didn't allow everyone to flourish. In Genesis, Jacob is navigating family systems that are built on scarcity, on inheritance, and on control. These are not gentle or necessarily fair systems. It seems like they pit people against each other in competition, and they definitely reward deception. They leave very little room for trust. And in the gospel, in Mark, we see Jesus walking straight into religious and political systems that were deeply entrenched and that seemed to be more concerned with maintaining power than with nurturing life and care. In both cases, it's hard to imagine how real change could ever happen. And yet, this is exactly where God shows up. God meets Jacob not in a comfortable place of stability and success, but while he is on the run, sleeping in the wilderness with a stone for a pillow. God doesn't say, "Here's how you fix this problem." God says, "I am with you." And as Jacob's story continues, we see God at work not by blessing the way things are and by fixing the system somehow, but by bringing life into the cracks of it through complicated people making imperfect choices, through learning slowly what faithfulness might look like in an imperfect world. When we turn back to Mark, we see that Jesus is doing something sort of similar. He doesn't try to prop up the system and make it run more smoothly. Instead, he exposes that which no longer bears fruit, like that poor fig tree is a symbol of. He centers the people who have been pushed to the margins. He tells stories that reveal just how upside down the values of the kingdom of God really are when compared to the values of the kingdoms of this world. Again and again, the pattern is the same. God doesn't wait for broken systems to be made right. And God doesn't leave us to figure it out and fix it all by ourselves. Instead, God works through faithful, imperfect people to make a new way of living when the old ways no longer give life. That doesn't mean everything changes all at once. These stories are messy, they are unresolved, and they're full of tension. And that's important because this week is not about finding heroes, and it's not about pretending that injustice is easy to overcome. It's about learning how to watch for God at work in quieter ways, in costly choices, in small acts of trust, and in moments when people refuse to let fear or control have the final word. So as you read this week, I invite you not to rush towards easy answers or simple resolutions. Instead, pay attention to where God shows up outside the centers of power. Notice who God chooses to work through, and watch for the fragile beginnings of something new, especially when the world feels like it's falling apart. As you read, I pray that you'll discover that even when the old ways seem like they're failing, God is still making life possible in the midst of all our messes. Thanks be to God. See you next week.